The word patriotism in and of itself is lofty, nearly insurmountable, not unlike the memorial that stands before you. But unlike the memorial, patriotism is malleable. It is not rigid and rough, but flexible and elastic, something that carries different weight and different meaning to each of the four men that you see on the mountain behind me. Patriotism is not merely a feeling. It is an action, a commitment to the ideals that our nation represents. Washington saw America in its infancy, and he fought for it throughout. America was originally an idea, an experiment, one that Washington and his comrades worked tirelessly to bring to fruition. To him, patriotism was about loving a mere concept so much that you would be willing to both kill and die for it, regardless of the potential outcome. Even after his time as president, Washington worked tirelessly to prevent the collapse of our infant democracy, leading speeches and writing essays on the prime standards and conditions of democracy and how we as a nation may attain and retain these values. His vision for our country was not merely one of survival. It was about thriving as a beacon of hope and freedom. His fight for our country did not end in D.C., nor in Yorktown. It may not have even ended after his death in 1799 due to the spirit of revolution and community that he instilled on his successors and on the American people. Thomas Jefferson also participated heavily in the American experiment, going so far as to pen the Declaration of Independence itself. To him, patriotism presented itself in the long hours of the night that he spent hunched over his desk, writing and researching. It manifested in the hour-long speeches that he gave before the Continental Congress and also in the disagreements that he had with his compatriots. To quote Jefferson, "Dissent is the highest form of patriotism." This underscores his belief in the role of debate and discourse in any healthy democracy. To President Jefferson, the intellectual freedom that we experience today, the freedom of thought and the freedom of belief, that is what made America worth fighting for. Abraham Lincoln was a patriot cut of a different cloth. When presented with one of the most divisive and tumultuous times in American history, Lincoln stood firm. He believed strongly in the ideals which had enthralled his forefathers. He stood for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, all of which were rights that he fought to have endowed on all Americans on both sides of the war, especially those who had been denied them prior. Lincoln lost friends and loved ones on and off the battlefield, in and out of the war. Nevertheless, he persisted through our political system, advocating strongly for the ideals which he saw not only in the past, but more importantly in the future of our nation. His Emancipation Proclamation was not merely a political stunt. It was a moral imperative, a testament to his belief in equality. Abraham Lincoln paid with his life for the country that he loved and for the effort that he put into preserving it, because he believed in a house united, one where brother was not pitted against brother for political reasons, but rather one where they may reach across the divide and embrace each other. An America of love, of happiness, and of freedom for all of its inhabitants. The wake of the Civil War brought about a period of great expansion for our country. As our nation spread westward across the mountains and southward toward the Caribbean Sea, Theodore Roosevelt stood out as a leader among leaders, known for his prowess in battle, commanding personality, unwavering confidence, and his deep respect for America's wilderness. To Roosevelt, America was worth protecting not only because of who lived here, but also because of what lived here. He saw our natural diversity and our natural beauty as integral parts of our national identity. Through his initial studies as a zoologist at Harvard, Roosevelt further deepened his already immense understanding of America's wilderness systems, allowing that wisdom to go on to shape policies that would form the future of America's lands, securing hundreds of millions of acres for federal public access, and setting in motion the sentiment that would drive Woodrow Wilson to found the National Park Service itself. To President Roosevelt, this nation was a mosaic, one made of beautiful lands just like the Black Hills and inhabited by equally beautiful souls, just like yourselves. America was worth fighting for, either to protect the land, the people, or the principles of democracy that America stood for, both at home and abroad. The spirit of patriotism, the spirit of America itself, has been wrought into the stone of Mount Rushmore, yet it stands as an icon alone. Much like the stars exist unconnected in space, with the lines between them and the stories associated made only by our fellow man, there is no American spirit in the lifeless granite itself. Rather, that spirit must be reflected in each of us. It is a spirit that calls for action, for engagement, and for a commitment to the ideals that define us. Each person in the crowd here today carries with them the flame imparted on you by your predecessors and your ancestors. Some may consider it the great tasks which lie before us, as dictated by Lincoln in his Gettysburg Address. Others may consider it the continuation of the American experiment, which was begun by Washington and Jefferson. The beauty in the memorial is the root word of it, memory. The memory of these four men does little by themselves, but when reminded of their deeds and their actions, of their sacrifices that they made for this country, we are all inspired to be not only better Americans, but better people in our own unique, important, beautiful ways. Now, not all of us are equipped to sally forth to the inhospitable conditions of Valley Forge. Just as not everyone is able to lead armies across the land and sea, or pen essay after essay defending American ideals and fighting for the necessity of our independence. What's great is that you don't have to be. Patriotism is not a one-size-fits-all concept. It is as diverse as the people who embody it. The house lies before us, the foundation already built, and it is not up to us to tear down that house and reconstruct that foundation, but rather to patch the cracks where we can. Today, your Valley Forge may look like attending local community meetings to grow feelings of strength, support, and solidarity between yourself, your peers, and your loved ones. Your Gettysburg may look like fighting for your constitutional rights in the form of protest on the streets of wherever you call home. Your penning of the Declaration of Independence may instead just be a proclamation of your own independence and your own individuality, that which is endowed to each American citizen. The faces before you are just that, faces. While they represent great men in American history and the ideals that each carried with them, they are no more or less American, no more or less human than each of us. Rather, instead, they remind us that greatness is not reserved for a select few, but achievable by all of those who dare to dream and dare to act. In all of us, there is a little bit of Rushmore. There is a fire in the heart of every person in this crowd, something worth fighting for, something worth being a patriot over. Patriotism to you might look like fighting for your country. It may look like coming to this country in the first place, seeking a better life for yourself and your loved ones. Patriotism can also mean following your dreams to make your life better, and it can mean taking care of your loved ones to make your family better. It can also mean standing up for justice, advocating for those who cannot advocate for themselves, or simply being a good neighbor. To me, patriotism found itself in a need for public service and conservation. I joined the National Park Service out of a love for my country, and out of a need to, following Roosevelt's example, protect its naturally and culturally significant spaces. I do this to honor the sacrifices of those who came before me, and to ensure that those who come after me can enjoy the same beauty and the same freedoms that I do today. Some of you may feel compelled to do the same thing that I have done. Most of you will feel compelled to do something completely different. What matters is that variety, that diversity of thought that Thomas Jefferson fought so hard for us to achieve. Just as there is no one definition of American, there is no one definition of patriot. The diversity brings the concept its beauty, and the beauty of it alone is worth fighting for. Thank you.
The United States of America It's hard to imagine, but not long ago, this great land of ours was pure wilderness. A place where millions of bison roamed freely throughout the plains. And those who lived on the land revered it as sacred ground. Yet this country would face a dramatic change, quickly becoming the most advanced nation in the world, in technology, in peace, and in power. From its inception, the United States has shaped itself under the guidance of strong leaders, leaders who have taken risks, stood up to adversity, and never let go of their vision for a better country. Mount Rushmore reminds us of them, and the countless Americans who have made great sacrifices to ensure the lasting legacy of our country. Freedom. We strived for it, we died for it, we live for it. The year was 1923. The place, the Black Hills of South Dakota. State historian Doane Robinson proposed that these granite outcroppings could be the site of an enormous monument dedicated to the heroes of the West, such as Lewis and Clark and Chief Red Cloud. But commissioned sculptor Gutzon Borglum had a different concept in mind. Borglum was a passionately patriotic man and believed that a more fitting tribute should honor the American experience. A memorial that would represent our ideals, our dreams, and our accomplishments as a country. A memorial that would convey a spirit of patriotism. Borglum chose his canvas carefully. The giant granite rock face of Mount Rushmore. And in 1927, work on the mountain began. Borglum assembled a team of local miners, ranchers, and lumbermen to help with construction. The sculptor built a model of the presidents to serve as a guide. Every inch on the model represented 1 foot on the mountain. Year after year, Borglum and his crew hung perilously on the side of the mountain, drilling and blasting their way to reach granite solid enough for carving. It took 14 years and nearly $1 million to complete the 4 60-foot faces. And even though the sculptor did not live to see the very final touches put into place, he was able to carry out his vision. 4 great Americans immortalized in stone, symbolizing the democratic society in which we live, the struggle for our independence, the fight for our freedom, and the sacrifices we have made since our country began more than 200 years ago. It was a time of rebellion and of war. It began as an uprising against British rule and turned into a full-fledged crusade for personal freedom and national independence. The American Revolution. From 1775 to 1783, up to 250,000 patriots engaged in battle. Even during the toughest times, when the Continental Army seemed undisciplined and ill-equipped, one man's courage and determination ultimately led the troops to victory over the British. The future father of our country, Washington. Born and raised in colonial Virginia, George Washington grew up to be a firm believer in American independence. Even though his heart yearned for quiet family life at his Mount Vernon home, his deep commitment to the Republic made him answer the call of his country time and time again. As general, Washington became an instant hero throughout the colonies. The public was so enamored with him that many people wished that he become king. But Washington scoffed at such an idea.
The army must serve the country, but not rule it. Express your utmost horror and detestation of the man who wishes to overturn the liberties of our country. George Washington, 1783.
It was this kind of insight and integrity that made him the perfect person to oversee the creation of a new federal government. With no blueprint to follow, Washington kept the colonies united and on course during the infant years of this nation. And after ratification of the Constitution, when he was unanimously elected first President of the United States, Washington was keenly aware that he was laying down the framework for future presidents to follow. Washington's legacy is that of a man who was first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen. In his inaugural address, he spoke of the task that lay before this new nation.
The preservation of the sacred fire of liberty and the destiny of the Republican model of government are justly considered as deeply, perhaps as finally staked, on the experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people. George Washington, 1789.
George Washington welded this union, but it would take another great visionary to expand it. Thomas Jefferson, third President of the United States.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thomas Jefferson, 1776.
Thomas Jefferson was the voice of the American people, inspiring patriots with his carefully crafted words written in the Declaration of Independence, the document that gave birth to our nation. It was also Jefferson who fought for religious freedom and the democratic notion that people should have a say in government, two very American principles we cherish today. Thomas Jefferson always thought of himself more as a scientist or scholar than as a politician. And it was this quest for knowledge that played a role in the greatest achievement of his presidency. In 1803, Jefferson acquired the French lands west of the Mississippi in the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the size of the country. In an effort to find out what America now owned, Jefferson sent Meriwether Lewis and William Clark on their famous expedition out west. It was an exciting time of discovery for new Americans. However, what was good for a growing nation was not necessarily good for its original inhabitants. During this time of expansion, many Native Americans were uprooted from their homes and hunting grounds and pushed farther west. But during an address to a group of Cherokee chiefs, Jefferson prophesied about future relations between natives and new settlers.
I shall rejoice to see the day when the red men, our neighbors, become truly one people with us, enjoying all the rights and privileges we do, and living in peace and plenty as we do, without anyone to make them afraid, to injure their persons or to take their property without being punished for it according to fixed laws. Thomas Jefferson, 1808.
Jefferson's dream was slow to be realized as conflicts between the U.S. government and Native Americans set off a chain of events that dramatically reduced Native populations throughout the 19th century. Thomas Jefferson believed in the promise of America and had faith in the American people. But this faith would truly be tested nearly 60 years later, when the Republic came dangerously close to unraveling. The Civil War was the most tumultuous period in American history. The differences between the states had deeply divided the nation, pitting brother against brother on American soil. But it was the determination of one man to keep the United States united. Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president. Abraham Lincoln was a self-made man of great character, a frontiersman who came from humble beginnings. When Lincoln was inaugurated in 1861, he faced more adversity than any other president in U.S. history. Many southern states had withdrawn from the Union. And even though Lincoln opposed war, he warned the South in his inaugural address that he would take whatever measures necessary to stop the rebellion.
In your hands, my dissatisfied fellow countrymen, and not in mine, is the momentous issue of civil war. The government will not assail you. You have no oath registered in heaven to destroy the government, while I shall have the most solemn one, to preserve, protect, and defend it. Abraham Lincoln, 1861.
The Civil War raged on for 4 brutal years. But Lincoln stuck to his commitment to democracy. His main objective was to save the Union, and he also strongly believed in freedom for all Americans. Until slavery was abolished, Lincoln felt the U.S. could never truly be the home of the free. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation began the process that ended the evils of slavery forever. Over 500,000 Union and Confederate soldiers lost their lives in the Civil War. But during his famous Gettysburg Address, Lincoln reminded the American people what this war was really all about.
That we here highly resolve that these dead should not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that this government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln, 1863.
Over the next 50 years, the United States would go through a dramatic transformation. The year 1900 was coming around the bend, and America was turning from a rural republic to a budding industrial power. It was clear that this new century, which burst with hope, needed a fresh start and a fresh approach. It was Theodore Roosevelt, our 26th president, who led the way.
Is America a weakling? To shrink from the work of the great world powers? No! The young giant of the West stands on a continent and clasps the crest of an ocean in either hand. Our nation, glorious in youth and strength, looks into the future with eager eyes and rejoices as a strong man's run a race. Theodore Roosevelt, 1897.
He was energetic, he was robust, and he was eager to show the world that America was a force to be reckoned with. Theodore Roosevelt believed in the strenuous life. Frail and sickly as a young boy, he overcame his illnesses and grew up to be a naturalist, a cowboy, a war hero, an author, and President of the United States by the young age of 42. His vigorous outlook on life transferred to the Oval Office. Roosevelt was a man of action. He promoted economic freedom and was a friend to the working class, protecting their rights against big business and what he called the criminal rich. Roosevelt also expanded the country's power abroad. It was his support of the 1903 revolution in Panama that led the U.S. to acquire territory for the construction of the Panama Canal. This massive undertaking not only created a valuable link between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, but it put the United States on the map in world politics. Yet, Roosevelt may be known best for his passion for the outdoors. He was vocal about conservation, and through the power of his presidency, he provided federal protection for almost 230 million acres of land.
To waste, to destroy our natural resources, to skin and exhaust the land instead of using it so as to increase its usefulness, will result in undermining in the days of our children the very prosperity which we ought by right to hand down to them amplified and developed. Theodore Roosevelt, 1907.
The pursuit of the American dream did not end with Theodore Roosevelt's term. Instead, it has carried us into the 21st century. Throughout history, countless Americans have made great sacrifices so that we can enjoy the freedoms of this land.
The only thing we have to fear. I have a dream today. Ask not what your country can do for you.
The same freedoms guaranteed in our Constitution and Bill of Rights. The same freedoms millions of people have sought since the first immigrants arrived over 200 years ago. Gutzon Borglum reminds us of this with his timeless memorial. 4 Americans representing the birth, growth, preservation, and development of this country. All embodying the spirit of our nation. All advocates of freedom, dignity, and the ideals of American life.
Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties, above the fruitless plain. God sent His grace on me, and crowned like good with brotherhood from sea to shining.
rise and join in singing America's national anthem.
At this time, I would like to invite all military personnel, both past and present, down to the stage. I would also like to invite any Gold Star families who have lost a loved one in service. If you are unable to make it to the stage, please send someone to represent. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we will retreat the colors for the evening. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, of those on stage tonight, some are currently serving our nation, some have served previously, and some have lost a loved one in the service. We have invited them all on stage tonight to publicly recognize the sacrifices that they all have made, and to thank them for their dedication to our nation. As they go on to rejoin their friends and families, let us show them our appreciation for their service one more time.